What this episode was lacking in the action department, in my opinion, it more than made up for it in the character development and just kind of laying the groundwork for the story development. Hana, episode 55, and this one be called Allies and Lies.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters and troop members and newly anointed hunters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and mind-bending and just mind-fuckery-filled tale of Hunter x Hunter. Now, the last episode, of course, ended off with, the Phantom Troop, where they were all getting their fortunes read by Crollo, obviously using that power that he had stole from Neon and Estrad. And, and Hisoka's fortune, basically just came straight out and said, like, he's betrayed them, he's this, he's that. But when Pakunoda asked him to see it, between that point and when Pakunoda, actually saw it and then it was being read by Nobunaga, the verses changed. So obviously he used something with his bungee gum or something like that along those lines to actually change it, and change it to kind of. It didn't really seem like he changed it though to suit him much better, because at the end Nobunaga still was like, "What? Did you sell out Uvo?" And he pulls his sword out. So that's how the episode ends off. The episode picks up right at that point, and actually you wind up finding out that it was an extremely clever thing that he did, and this is part of what I really enjoy and part of the magic that I've found so far in Hunter x Hunter, and really just Togashi in general with his writing and the way he pulls these stories together and just kind of does things that are unconventional, I guess, that you wouldn't think. Many times I don't see them coming at all, and it's just like, okay, I wouldn't have even guessed that, but. So what we wind up finding out, first of all, Nobunaga goes to, he goes to, he's like, oh, forget about it, you're not worth it, puts his sword away, turns around, then he's like, as if, and he turns and charges at Hisoka, and he's coming straight at him. Hisoka stands up and gets his card ready, and I'm thinking, oh man, they're about to go down. And then Crollo goes and uses his power to, like, make that Nobunaga disappear, and then all of a sudden he's up on a, he's up on a ledge somewhere, like 20 feet away, 30 feet away, and he's like, and then he's just sort of got this soft, sort of feminine voice, and he's just kind of like, Nobunaga, calm down, sit the fuck down, I gotta ask Hisoka some questions. So, what Hisoka actually did, the smart bastard that he is he changed the fortune around to make it appear as if somehow or another he had encountered the chain user with the scarlet eyes, and the chain user had put some kind of spell on him almost, like with conditions and whatnot, pointing out maybe like a Nen dagger at his heart if he didn't meet those conditions. And Crollo's just kind of guessing as to this, but the way the fortune is laid out, he talks about this sword of truth and everything else. So Crollo kind of deduces that the sword of truth, must basically be like code for these are the conditions that he needs to meet or he'll die, and he can't, so he can't talk about or give up the, more or less like he was hypnotized, mind fucked, whatever you want to call it, by Kurapika. And of course we know that that's not the truth. But it's amazing because as Crollo's going and breaking this all down and kind of pulling, and it was a big risk Hisoka took, but as Crollo's kind of taking the bait and falling into the trap, Hisoka's just sitting there like, just having himself a little Hisoka-gasm, and getting, his little pants are getting all wet over there, and his little nuts are getting in a knot, because all of a sudden he's just like, oh, it turns me on. Oh, I've got to fight him and kill him one-on-one now, so Hisoka's one of them weird, deadly sort of pedo rapists, but anyway, whatever, that's we kind of all know that, but he really is a good character though. He's really a good villain, anti-hero, I don't know what you want to call him, but, and Crollo is too. Crollo's smooth as the other side of the pillow, but anyway, in this episode, for the most part, it takes away from really any type of action that's going on. We wind up seeing, we check in back with Gon and Killua, and basically they're talking about, since the reward for the Phantom Troop has been rescinded, that they're, Killua's like, it's stupid, it's a waste to try to get the Phantom Troop still, and Gon's like, yeah, but I want to do it, and this and that, because they're bad, and, that's what I'd like to do, and, just kind of that simple-mindedness, and then they wind up agreeing not to do anything with the Phantom Troop unless Kurapika accepts their help or wants their help, right? So anyway, so you wind up, there's a nice scene too between the four of them where they all sit down, and Kurapika goes and explains about the condition that he put on, his chain jail, or chains of justice as I call it. But he explains a little bit about a couple of different chains. 2 out of 5 of them are locked down specifically for using for the Phantom Troop. And it's cool because he goes through and gives you a detailed explanation of it, which is something that this series is very, very good at doing. And the way it's broken down. It's broken down in easy enough layman's terms that you can understand it. It's kind of like easy to learn, but like difficult to master. Kind of like you can grasp the idea of Nen pretty easily, but I'm still just kind of peeling back the layers, and finding out new things every episode. Every time I look at the comments, every time I, I think about, oh, okay, and there's new application for a new way of being able to use. So it's really, really very neat. Like I said, it's a simply complex system. It's very, very cool. And so anyway, so what ends up happening though, and the whole point of the conversation is that Gon asks Kurapika to go and put one of those Nen daggers at his heart and put whatever condition he wants on it. He wants to show Kurapika that his resolve is absolute, And they wind up talking about how they're going to try to go and grab Pakunodo first, right? She's got the weird witch's nose, but she's just got like the killer stripper body, It's just terrible, just terrible. I mean, but to tell you the truth, though, honestly, the way she looks, I wouldn't be surprised if she went and pulled up her skirt and there was a little dick there. Though that, again, it's a story for another time, but I'm just saying it could be, or who knows, or maybe she's just one of those more manly-looking women in the face, and I don't know. Anyways, Kurapika says that she's a threat. We're going to go and get her, right? And the whole idea behind what they're going to do is they're going to go, and before the auction starts again in 6 hours, they know the troop's going to be on the move. So what they're going to do is Killua's going to go and scout out everything, right? Gon is going to go in, and Leoto's going to drive him for doing that, He's got to do something. And Gon and Kurapika's basically going to capture Pakunodo, right? And he's like, all right, listen, I just need you to distract the troop for 1 second, right? And you're thinking 1 second, that's nothing, dude. That's a twinkle in the eye. That's it's a fart in the wind, man. That's nothing. But when you think about how fast the troop members are, and even when we can just see a few episodes prior when Gon and Killua were captured by them, they're like lightning fast. You know what I mean? They predict movements, it seems like. Anyway, so Gon at first is just like, I don't even know if I can do that. I don't even know if I can give you a second, So I don't know if I can give you a second at all. And what winds up happening though is that everybody goes and shows their resolve. Of course, Gon, Killua, and Leorio and they show their friendship and their honor and their strength of commitment, and I think strength of will towards their friendship and their resolve. Obviously with Kurapika, because all three of them say, hey, you can put a dagger at our hearts, this and that. Anyway, the bottom line is that Kurapika says, you know what, I just wanted to see. He was kind of just testing to see like how strong they would, how far they would go, how strong that will was, how strong that resolve was, right? And obviously he's impressed, and obviously thanks them for their commitment to this operation, because he's going to go in, try to get one of the troop members and go out. And then we wind up going back to the troop for a little bit, and we kind of see them all sitting around brooding, and now they're all kind of freaking, man. They're all sitting around going over their fortunes, kind of thinking about trying to break down how everything's going to work out. Because the way Hisoka's fortune played out after that Sword of Truth thing and everything else is that it alluded to that they need to stay here in the base in York New City, which is what he wants, so he can get a shot at Crollo. And he changed it and altered it like that, so then they would be afraid to leave, because then the way his reads is that if they wind up leaving, then they'll lose half their members through leaving, So Crollo winds up making the decision, early on in the episode that no, they're going to stay, which is, of course, what Hisoka wanted. But as the rest are sitting around and kind of brooding over their fortunes, some of them make, a lot of sense, some of them don't make a lot of sense. It's kind of tough to kind of break everything down, because again they're a little bit vague in the sense that they're just sort of these verses, and you have to find out how they apply and then find out how to try to avoid those particular things if it's something that puts you in harm's way. But what Crollo winds up doing is breaking everybody up into groups of 3, and and there's 12 of them left, obviously, and he winds up breaking everybody up into groups of 3 and kind of like, hey, stay with your buddy, you got your buddy, stay with your buddy. Obviously strengthen numbers and hopefully to avoid anything bad happening to them. But then he winds up going and asking Krotopi, the cousin looking one that can do the copies and what have you, that says, can you make 10 copies of this base? And he's like, I can make 50, and each one is powered by my N, or is like an extension of my N. So so if anybody steps inside of any one of those bases, I can tell, So obviously that's a good, if anybody knows where they are, it's a good thing to be able to create those to kind of throw anybody off. And then we get a brief thing too where they wind up, Nobunaga all of a sudden remembers after they remind him about, Gon and Killua knowing where the base is, these 2 kids and this and that. And he's like, oh yeah, by the way, boss, I wanted them to join up. And Crow's like, well, it doesn't sound like he wants to. And Nobunaga's like, no, we can talk him into it, Anyway, I thought it was a good episode. It's one of those episodes that ultimately, at the end of the day, doesn't wind up being real flashy in the sense that there was no action and everything else. And this is a very beautifully animated series. However, this is great to kind of give that depth and that kind of that charm that this series has, and especially to the characters like the Phantom Troop as they flesh out more of the members. I can see why many people are like this group, why they're kind of attached to them. Why it's considered one of the better or best arcs in Shonen. Mainly because, really, it humanizes what is normally the villain that you want to hate. The villains are still villains, and you know that they are, but at the same time, you're like, okay, well, they do kind of have some similarities with normal people, and they are kind of, so it's very well done, I think. But anyway, the episode winds up, of course, ending off with Killua. He goes and he's in the rain, and he's going to scope everything out. And he goes and happens upon, obviously, all these different copies. There's much more, buildings in this area that was desolate when they were there last. So that's how the episode ends off, and I really kind of can't wait for the next few to see how this arc, finishes up and closes out and what actually happens, what transpires. My episode question for you, though, brothers and sisters, is what were your thoughts on Hisoka and his quick thinking to change his fortune, number one? Number two, what were your thoughts on the gamble that he took? The gamble that he took, I mean, it could have cost him his life, because honestly, if Crollo hadn't bought into it, and he could have kind of seen through the bullshit, it could have been the end for Hisoka. You know what I mean? It very well may have been, and probably would have been, in my opinion. So I think it was a real risk-reward gamble type thing, like, oh, if I just shut up my mouth, everybody will disperse, and then maybe I'll get a chance at him again in a couple of years or a couple months or whatever. But if you remember, this is the first time that they've all been together and been called together to meet in like 3 years. So for the most part, I think they operate fairly independent, and maybe here or there, maybe get some orders, through like a text message or something, hey, go rob this place or whatever. But I think for the most part, they don't see each other a whole lot. That's what it seems like. So Hisoka, I think my question being is, he played his cards, and in my opinion, he won. But what are your thoughts on that hand that he played? It was very risky, in my opinion. So leave your answer, though, to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation.
Remember to follow me over on my other channels and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, too.